My 13-year-old nephew met my wife for the first time and said, "I've seen you before." She froze, and what happened next left me shaken. What unfolded after that moment changed everything I thought I knew. Hi. My name is Alex, and I'm a 30-year-old man who's been through a lot recently. Even though some time has passed, it still feels like everything happened just yesterday. I wanted to talk about it with someone other than my family and friends, so here I am. Let me start from the beginning. I was born much later than my brother. He was 16 years old when I was born. Because of the big age gap, we never had a close brotherly bond, although he did spoil me a lot. It felt like he treated me more like his own child than his brother. By the time I was old enough to remember anything, my brother was already off to college. When I was 10 years old, I attended his wedding. He was already expecting at the time, so I was excited not just for the wedding but also to meet my nephew and have another kid to play with. 5 months after the wedding, my nephew, Tori, was born. I still clearly remember visiting him in the hospital right after he was born. I was so excited to see his little face and felt an overwhelming amount of love for him. After Tori came home, I spent as much time as possible with my brother to help take care of him. As the years went by, my love for Tori only grew. I would always offer to babysit whenever my brother needed help. Instead of thinking of each other as uncle and nephew, Tori and I felt more like siblings. That's why it was so hard for both of us when I had to move to a different state, Florida, to study and work. But I made sure to always call home and stay in touch with my family, especially Tori. The distance didn't break our bond. In my last year of university, I met my wife, Caleb. She was a star athlete, and I still don't know how I caught her attention. Since I wasn't into sports at all, I spent most of my time reading in the library. But one day, Caleb found me there and started talking to me. What I loved most about her was how confident and charming she was. Later, after we were together for a while, she told me she was actually nervous to talk to me, but I never would have guessed that from how confidently she approached me. We went on several dates and quickly realized that even though we had different interests, we fit well together. We shared the same sense of humor and spent all our dates laughing until our bellies hurt. It didn't take long for us to make our relationship official. I always made it clear to Caleb how much I loved my family, so she met them through many video calls. The only person I didn't tell about Caleb was my nephew, Tori. Even though Caleb had met almost everyone important in my family, she hadn't met Tori yet. I did talk to her about him a lot, though. One day, Caleb asked why she hadn't met my nephew even though I talked about him so much. I told her, "Babe, I haven't introduced you to Tori because he's just 11. I want to protect his innocence from my adult life." She replied, "I don't think 11 is too young. I'd like to meet him and be part of his life too. Tori is the most important person to me, but he's still a child. He doesn't need to be involved in my romantic life," I explained. "It feels like you're keeping me separate because you doubt our relationship's future," she said. "What? That's not true at all," I assured her. "You were afraid of introducing me to Tori in case things don't work out between us. You don't want to introduce him to someone who won't be a constant in his life," she continued. "You've got it all wrong. It's about protecting him, not doubting us," I said. "All right. Fine. Let's drop it. Just understand that I see a long future for us," she said. "But I'm just not ready to mix our worlds yet," I explained. I understood why Caleb was upset, but I wasn't ready to involve Tori in this part of my life. I wanted to protect Tori's innocence, even though deep down I knew I wasn't really doing that. In my mind, he was still that little baby I first met in the hospital, and I wanted to keep seeing him that way, at least until he became a teenager. 2 years after we graduated from college, Caleb asked me to move in with her, and I happily agreed. I was thrilled to live with a woman I was so deeply in love with. During this time, I also met all of Caleb's family. Caleb was still a little hurt that I hadn't told Tori about her yet, but she chose to let it go instead of bringing it up. I could tell she was still bothered by it because she would briefly mention it before dropping the subject. When Tori turned 13, I waited a couple of months before finally telling him about Caleb. We got on a video call one day while Caleb was out for a run. "Tori, I have something to share with you," I said. "What's up?" he replied. "I have a girlfriend." "Really? Oh my gosh. Tell me everything," he exclaimed. "Her name is Caleb. We met in college and have been together since my senior year." "Is she a good person?" he asked. "She's the best. You'd love her," I assured him. "I can't wait to meet her then." "Well, actually, we were planning to come for Thanksgiving." "Wait. Seriously? I've got bad timing." "What do you mean?" I asked, confused. "I got into that boarding high school I've been raving about for ages. I need to be there next month." "That's amazing, Tori. I'm so proud of you." "Yeah. But I won't be around for Thanksgiving." "Don't worry about it. I'm planning on marrying Caleb anyway, so you'll have plenty of time to meet her." "You're already planning weddings?" "I love it," he said with a laugh. Update. We spent the next half hour excitedly talking about Taylor's new school. I learned that Taylor would only have some time off, but now that Sarah and I were working, we couldn't just take off to go meet him. And when Taylor was at school, he wasn't allowed to use electronics for long periods. Taylor was fine with that because the school had so many extracurricular activities that would keep him busy and tire him out. By the end of the day, I was excited for him to experience new things. When Sarah came back from her run, I told her about the call. Once again, She was disappointed that she missed meeting Taylor, but she felt better knowing that I was ready to introduce them. She didn't mind waiting because she knew I wasn't purposely keeping her away from the most important person in my life. A couple of months later, while we were visiting my family for Thanksgiving, Sarah decided to propose to me. I couldn't have imagined a better time for her to do it. She knew how much I wanted my family to be there during my big moments. I said yes with the biggest smile on my face and tears streaming down my cheeks. We got married within the next year. Taylor, of course, heard the news and sent a text congratulating me. Sarah and I spent the next year meticulously planning our wedding. We wanted everything to be perfect. Since Taylor was still at school, there was no way for him to attend the wedding. I was crushed that he couldn't make it, but I knew his education was more important than an event like a wedding. Plus, Sarah comforted me by saying we could have a small ceremony after Taylor graduates to replicate our wedding. The wedding was a grand affair. Everyone laughed and cried, and I felt like the luckiest man alive. The love and support I received that day were beyond anything I could have imagined. I truly believed that the rest of my life would be blissful because I got to spend it with Sarah. And for the first year of our marriage, that was true. But then things started to go downhill. We both had stable 9-to-5 jobs, made good money, and lived comfortably. We were never really interested in having children, so that wasn't something we had to plan for. So it came as a surprise when one night while we were lying in bed, Sarah asked if she could start working overtime. "Babe, there's something I need to talk to you about," she said. "What's up?" I asked, a little concerned. "I've been thinking about taking up overtime at work," Sarah said one night as we lay in bed. "Overtime? Why the sudden interest?" I asked, surprised. "I've been aiming for a promotion for a while now, and the extra money could help us," she explained. "I love that you're passionate and ambitious, but we're already comfortable," I said. "I know, but I think we can do even better," she replied. "I love our time together. Just relaxing after work and on weekends, it means a lot to me," I told her, hoping she'd understand. "I value that too, but I see the potential for more," she said. "It's not about potential. It's about quality of life. I want to enhance our quality of life through hard work," she insisted. "I respect your choices, but I'm not happy with this decision." I admit it. "I'm doing what's best for both of us," Sarah said, then turned over and turned out the light after wishing me good night. I was left awake with my thoughts, feeling upset that Sarah had made this decision without really discussing it with me. We didn't need the extra money. Both of us were able to save a good amount each month. We had made smart investments and had our retirement funds set up. We lived comfortably, so I didn't understand why she felt the need to work more. But I figured that if Sarah was happy, I would be happy too. The next few months were torture for me. Sarah started coming home late and was usually too tired to do anything. She'd eat dinner and go straight to bed. She even worked on Saturdays and spent Sunday sleeping. I barely saw her properly most days, and I missed spending time with my wife. I tried talking to her about cutting back on work, but she always brushed me off, saying it was for our benefit. Eventually, after 6 months of this, Sarah did get promoted. I thought this would mean she'd have more flexibility with her time. While she did get more flexibility, it came with constant business trips. Every other week, she was flying out of state. It got to the point where it felt like I wasn't living with my wife anymore, just a roommate I barely knew. I didn't know what to do. One month, Sarah hadn't been home for more than 2 days, and that was my tipping point. I broke down in front of her, asking why she never spent time with me anymore. "Seriously, Alex, you're being so dramatic," she said, annoyed. "I'm not being dramatic. I'm just expressing my feelings," I said, hurt. "Well, you're being selfish. I'm working hard for a better life for us," she shot back. "I never asked for any of that. All I want is time with you. The simple things we used to do," I pleaded. "Right. Because sitting on the couch watching junk TV is so fulfilling. Stop being ungrateful," she snapped. "You're calling me ungrateful? I appreciate your hard work, but it's tearing us apart," I said, my voice shaking. "If I waited for you to tell me what to do, I'd be stuck doing nothing in life. Do you really think I'm holding you back?" She retorted, shocked. "You settle for less. You're happy with the bare minimum. I'm not like that. I want more from life," she said, her frustration clear. "I'm not settling. I'm content with what we have because it's enough for me," I tried to explain. "And that's your problem. You're too lazy to chase after better things," she said harshly. "I'm not greedy, Sarah. I value what's important over constantly working myself to the bone," I replied, tears filling my eyes. "You just don't get it, do you?" she said, storming out of the house, leaving me standing there overwhelmed by a flood of emotions. How could Sarah treat me this way? How could she look at me with such disappointment when she used to see me as the light of her life? I let it be for a while, trying to process everything. Eventually, Sarah's business trips became so frequent that she barely lived with me anymore. My heart is numb now. Update 2. I stopped talking to everyone as I sank deeper into depression. What pulled me out of my depression was a call from an unknown number. At first, I ignored the calls, but they were so persistent that I finally answered. I cautiously said, "Hello? Hello, Alexis. It's me, Troy," the voice on the other end said. "Troy? Oh my goodness. It's really you. How have you been? How come the new number?" I asked, surprised but thrilled. "I know it's been too long. I lost my phone and had to get a new one. Plus, it helped that I lost it right around the time I graduated high school. I'm so sorry I haven't kept in touch. Life got busy, and I let time slip away, he explained. Don't worry. I've been swamped too. Even keeping up with my own mom was tough. So how come the sudden call? I asked, curious. I picked a university in Florida, Alexis. I'm actually in Florida now, he said. No way. That's amazing. I'm so happy you're close by. We have to meet, I said excitedly. I was hoping you'd say that. I've missed you so much. Can we really meet up? He asked. Of course. Let's make plans. I can't wait to see you again, I replied, smiling. Me too. It's going to be awesome catching up, he said. We set a date for that weekend. I thought it was the perfect time because Cameron would be home that weekend, and I was eager to see Troy again. After all this time, I realized that Troy's university was only an hour's drive from where I lived, so we could meet up more often. That night, I called Cameron to share the news, but she didn't seem to care. I got upset and asked, why aren't you excited about meeting Troy? After all this time, I realized I'm never really a priority for you. You kept me hidden from someone so important to you with some silly excuse, Cameron responded. That's not true. I don't think my feelings about this are silly. Can't we just forget about it for now? I still want you both to meet, I said. It doesn't matter now, Cameron replied. But could you at least be nice when Troy's here? I don't want him to see our problems. Oh, so now you care about appearances? When will you be honest with him? Cameron shot back. It's not about that. I just want him to see the good parts of us. Good parts? Doesn't seem like there's much of that left these days, Cameron said, walking away. I couldn't understand why Cameron was being so difficult. I wasn't asking for anything unreasonable. I would have said the same thing if any other family member was visiting. I decided not to think about it too much because it only made me feel worse. When the weekend arrived, I greeted Troy with a big hug and teared up seeing how much he'd grown. We had 2 hours alone before Cameron came back from her trip, and during that time, we caught up on everything we'd missed. We laughed and cried together as we remembered the past. When Cameron finally came home, she went to freshen up in the bedroom. When she came back to the living room, she kissed me and then introduced herself to Troy. Troy looked confused as he shook her hand. How have you been, Troy? Cameron asked. I've been all right, Troy replied. Well, that's good to hear. I've always wanted to meet you. Alexis talks about you all the time, but she never let me meet you before. Yeah. I've been meaning to see you too. I'm glad we finally got the chance. What university are you attending? Cameron asked. I'm going to New College of Florida. Oh, really? Sorry, but you look familiar. I can't figure out where I might have seen you before, Cameron said. Troy hesitated. I'm not sure. You just look familiar. I noticed Cameron looked panicked. She was sweating and trembling. I asked her if everything was okay, but before she could answer, Troy gasped and pulled out his phone. I looked at both of them confused, wondering what was going on. I asked Troy and Cameron to explain what was happening. Cameron didn't say anything and tried to leave, but Troy stopped her, saying she wasn't going anywhere. I looked at Troy confused as he showed me his phone and asked me to look at the photos on it. In the photos, I saw text messages between two people who seemed like a couple. I was puzzled and asked Troy what this was about. Troy explained that he had made a friend at university. When they went to a party, his friend mentioned she was dating an older woman named Cameron. Troy showed me several pictures of this woman, and I realized it was Cameron. I asked Cameron if this was true. She tried to deny it and said, "Are you really going to believe a young boy over your wife?" "You're just avoiding the truth," Troy responded. "There's proof from text with my friend, but the messages only have a contact name, not a number, so it's hard to confirm it's her." He then showed me more pictures of Cameron on dates with his friend. My heart broke with each photo. I couldn't understand why Cameron would do this. We had been going through a rough patch, but I had hoped we could work things out. I turned to Cameron with tears in my eyes and asked her how long she had been having the affair. Cameron looked away and didn't answer. Troy, clearly disgusted, said he knew it had been going on for 2 years. My heart shattered. I wondered if Cameron's long work hours were really just an excuse to be with someone else. Then another thought struck me, and I felt sick just thinking about it. But I had to ask for my own peace of mind. I asked Troy how old his friend was. Troy replied with disgust that his friend was the same age as him. I couldn't bear to look at Cameron anymore. Not only had she been cheating, but she had been doing it with someone so young. I packed up Cameron's things and threw them at her, telling her to leave. She didn't even try to argue. Once she was gone, I ran to the bathroom and threw up, overwhelmed by the disgust of her actions. I cried for a long time, and Troy stayed by my side, comforting me. He spent the week with me as I took the necessary steps to move forward. I quickly filed for divorce and found a lawyer to report Cameron for her crime of dating and sleeping with a minor. Cameron tried to fight back, but the court sided with me. I got most of our assets, and Cameron was found guilty. She was sentenced to 5 years in prison and ordered to pay an $11,000 fine. I felt a sense of justice and relief. After all the pain I had endured, it was finally over. I was deeply disgusted to have been with a woman capable of such terrible actions, but I was glad she was held accountable. I found some comfort knowing that Cameron would always be a registered sex offender and that her life would be greatly affected by her actions. It took me another 2 years to fully heal, but I grew stronger from the experience. I moved back to my home state and spent time recovering with my close friends and family. In the end, it was my family who supported me and helped me find joy again. I share my story to remind you that no matter how difficult things get, there is always hope. I'm still healing, but I'm no longer haunted by Cameron's betrayal. Thank you for listening.